Picture this. It's 1985. A young man named Robert just got his first real paycheck. He's 23, ambitious, and for the first time in his life, he has money in his pocket. Real money. His dad pulls him aside and says, "Son, buy a house. That's where real wealth is. It's what I did, it's what my father did, and it never lets you down." So Robert listens. He buys a house. He feels smart, responsible. He brags to his friends at work. Fast forward to 2005. Robert's son, Michael, just graduated college. He's got a good job, a little savings, and he's fired up about the future. And Robert pulls him aside and says, "You guessed it, son, buy a house." Now fast forward again. It's today. Michael's daughter, Emma, is 26, working remotely and trying to figure out money. And what does she hear from basically everyone around her? You should buy a house. It's an investment. 3 generations, same advice, same mental template. And here's the wild part. It's not that the advice is wrong, it's that none of them ever stopped to ask why they believed what they believed about money in the first place. Because the one financial mistake every generation repeats isn't about stocks or real estate or crypto or savings accounts. It's much deeper than that. It's the mistake of inheriting a financial identity without ever questioning it. And once I show you how this works, really works, inside your brain, you will never look at your own money decisions the same way again. Let me ask you something. Where did you learn about money? Not like, where did you take a class? I mean, where did you really learn it? The deep stuff, the emotional stuff. For most people, the answer is simple. You learned it at home. You learned it by watching your parents. You absorbed it like a sponge, their fears, their habits, their beliefs, without ever being handed a manual. If your parents were anxious about money, chances are there's a version of that anxiety living inside you right now. If your parents spent freely and never talked about savings, there's probably a voice in your head that says saving feels uncomfortable, maybe even unnecessary. If your parents were obsessed with security above everything else, you might feel physically stressed every time you take any kind of financial risk, even a reasonable one. This is what psychologists call a money script. It's a belief about money that you developed early in life, usually before age 10, and it runs in the background of every single financial decision you make as an adult. And here's the terrifying part. Most people never know their money script exists. They just think, this is how money works, this is reality, this is common sense. But it's not reality. It's a story, passed down like a family heirloom, except this one is invisible. And every generation, they repeat it, almost on autopilot. Let me break down exactly how this happens, because once you see the mechanics, it clicks. When you're young, we're talking toddler to early teenager, your brain is doing something remarkable. It's building a model of the world. It's taking everything it sees and hears and feels and trying to find patterns, rules, shortcuts. Because the brain is lazy by design, not in a bad way, it's just efficient. It doesn't want to think about every little decision from scratch, so it builds templates. And money for a child is deeply emotional. It's tied to safety. It's tied to whether there's tension in the house, whether your parents fight at the kitchen table, whether you got new sneakers for school or had to wear the old ones one more year. Your brain didn't log those moments as facts, it logged them as feelings, as emotional rules. Money is scarce, you have to protect it. Or money comes and goes, don't stress too much. Or rich people can't be trusted. Or wanting more money is greedy. These aren't logical conclusions, they're emotional shortcuts, and they live deep in the part of your brain that controls gut reactions, not the part that does careful analysis. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There's a concept in behavioral economics called the availability heuristic. Basically, your brain judges how likely or how important something is based on how easily an example comes to mind. What's the most available financial example in your memory? Your parents, your household, what you grew up watching. So when you're 25, standing in front of a big money decision, should I rent or buy? Should I invest this money or save it? Should I start a business or play it safe? Your brain doesn't reach for a spreadsheet, it reaches for those childhood templates. And it does it so fast you don't even feel it happening. It just feels like instinct, like obvious common sense. This is why someone who grew up watching their parents invest confidently in the stock market will often feel much more comfortable investing. Not because they necessarily know more, because it feels normal to them. And someone who grew up watching their parents lose money in the market or get burned in the 2008 crash will feel deep anxiety about investing, even when the math clearly makes sense. Same information, completely different gut response, because the template is different. Now here's the part that really stings. This isn't just about habits, it shapes your ambition ceiling. What I mean is this: without realizing it, most people have an invisible cap on what they believe is financially possible for them, and it's almost always inherited. Think about it. If everyone in your family lived paycheck to paycheck, it doesn't just mean you grew up without much money, it means your brain developed a subconscious belief that this is what life looks like for people like you. The idea of having, say, $200,000 in investments doesn't just seem far away, it might actually feel wrong, uncomfortable, like it belongs to a different category of person. And when you feel that discomfort, your brain does what it always does with discomfort. It avoids it. You don't invest, you don't negotiate your salary, you spend instead of saving, not because you're irresponsible, because your brain is protecting you from something that feels dangerous, even when it isn't. Psychologists call this money thermostat theory. Just like a thermostat keeps a room at a certain temperature, your subconscious keeps you at a certain financial level. Get too far above it, you find ways to spend it, lose it, or sabotage it. Stay too far below it, anxiety kicks in and motivates you back up. And unless you deliberately reprogram that thermostat, you'll spend your whole life in the same temperature zone your parents were in.
Now let's take this one level deeper, because this is where most financial content stops, and it shouldn't. The reason this mistake repeats across generations isn't laziness. It's not stupidity. It's not even lack of information. It's because of something called social proof, and it's one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Robert Cialdini, one of the greatest researchers on influence, found that humans are hardwired to look at what other people, especially people in our group, are doing and use that as a guide for what we should do. And who is your most important group? Your family, your community, the people who look like you and live like you. So if everyone around you buys a car on credit and treats that as normal, it feels normal. If everyone around you rents their whole life and never invests, not investing starts to feel like the safe, reasonable choice, even when it isn't. Here's the brutal truth. You could read every finance book ever written. You could watch every video on compound interest and index funds. But if your social environment, the people you spend real time with, has a different set of financial norms, you will slowly drift back toward their norms. Because humans are social animals first, and rational calculators second. This is why people say, I know what I should do with my money, and then don't do it. The knowing is in the logical brain, but the doing is driven by the emotional social brain, and those two aren't always on the same team. Let me give you an analogy that makes this crystal clear. Imagine you're trying to get fit. You read every nutrition book, you understand calories in, calories out. You know exactly what to eat. But then you go home to a family that eats fast food every night, and every social event in your life involves pizza and beer. How long do you think your new healthy habits will survive? Not long, because the environment wins, almost every time. Money works exactly the same way. Now, here's the other side of this that barely anyone talks about. The people who break the cycle, who genuinely change their financial trajectory compared to everyone around them, they don't just learn new information. They do something more radical. They change their financial identity. Not, I'm trying to be better with money. Not, I'm going to start investing someday. Something deeper. I'm someone who builds wealth. Full stop. That's who I am. There's research in behavior change, particularly from a psychologist named James Clear, who popularized this in his work on habits, that shows identity-based change is dramatically more powerful than outcome-based change. Most people set goals. I want to save $10,000 this year. The people who actually change say something different internally. I'm someone who pays themselves first. I'm someone who doesn't carry consumer debt. I'm someone who thinks long-term. When the identity shifts, the decisions that follow from it stop feeling like sacrifice. They start feeling like self-expression, like staying true to who you are. That's the real unlock, and it's the thing no one inherits by accident. So, what do you actually do with this? Let's get practical, because insights without action are just interesting thoughts that fade away by Tuesday. Step 1. Audit your money scripts. Sit down, seriously, actually do this, and write down 5 beliefs you hold about money. Not what you know about money, what you feel about it. Things like, people like me don't get rich, or I'm not good with money, or investing is too risky, or if I earn more, I'll just spend more. Then ask one question for each belief. Where did it come from? Not to blame anyone, not to get stuck in the past, just to see it clearly, because you cannot change a program you don't know is running. Step 2. Separate your financial identity from your financial history. Your family's money story is not your destiny. It's your starting point. Those are very different things. One exercise that works surprisingly well, and this comes from cognitive behavioral therapy adapted for money, is to write a letter from your future self to your current self. Your future self who made different choices. What does that version of you wish you had understood earlier? What decisions did they make that you're currently hesitating on? This sounds soft, but the research on it is genuinely strong. It creates psychological distance from your current patterns and makes alternative choices feel more real and possible. Step 3. Change your financial environment, not just your habits. If you want to think differently about money, you need to be around people who think differently about money. Period. This doesn't mean abandoning your family or being snobbish. It means deliberately expanding your inputs. Follow people who are building wealth. Read about people who started with similar circumstances and changed their trajectory. Join online communities where investing and building are normalized. You're not trying to escape your roots. You're trying to add new roots. Step 4. Automate the decisions your emotional brain will sabotage. Here's the thing. Even after all this self-awareness work, your emotional brain is still going to show up. It's always going to feel easier to spend today than to invest for tomorrow. So remove your emotional brain from the equation wherever you can. Automatic transfers to savings on payday. Automatic investments into a diversified portfolio. Automatic debt payments. When the decision happens automatically, your emotional brain never gets a vote. And over time, the behavior becomes the new normal, which then starts to feel like identity, which then becomes self-reinforcing. This is how the cycle breaks. Slowly, deliberately, with a lot of self-compassion, because it's genuinely hard. Let's come back to Robert, and Michael, and Emma. Here's what I didn't tell you at the beginning. All 3 of them are fictional, but their pattern is real, extremely real. Researchers who study intergenerational wealth, or the lack thereof, consistently find that financial behaviors repeat across generations not because of money itself, but because of the beliefs around money, the identity, the emotional template. And the families that break that cycle, they don't always break it because someone made one brilliant investment. Often, they break it because someone in the family stopped to ask a question no one before them had ever asked. Why do I believe what I believe about money? That question is quiet. It doesn't make headlines. It won't go viral on social media. But it might be the most important financial question you ever ask. Because every generation repeats the same mistake, not because they're bad with money, but because no one ever handed them a mirror and said, look at how you think about this. Really look. You've now looked. What you do next is up to you. If this video made you see your own money story a little more clearly, drop a comment. I genuinely want to hear what came up for you. And if you know someone who needs to break a financial pattern, share this with them. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone isn't money advice. It's this. See you in the next one.
Hello guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like, share and comment, and also subscribe my channel.